So this is kind of a big fact, more than just a factoid. This is a big fact about the Kennebec Valley, and that is that trade through the Kennebec saved the Plymouth colony. Right now, folks in the area of Hallowell, Augusta, they kind of know this, but this is an important point for just all of American history. We celebrate Thanksgiving like, oh, and the story that you tell kids is the natives told, the Indians taught them how to raise crops and they were able to survive after starving and that blah, blah, blah. Revise that as you want. To my revision is that, well, that's important at one level because, it's good. Starving, bad. Not starving, good. But you got debts, man. You got to pay people and you've got to have opportunities for people, right? So how do you do that? Well, what the Pilgrims did is as soon as they had a surplus of corn, they built a boat, packed the corn into it, went up to Maine, right? Actually east to Maine, because that's how they tended to think of it. You go, because it's moving in that direction is often called going down east because it's with the wind towards which goes to the east. I digressed. They find their way into the Kennebec River, which I also am like, wow, that's interesting that of all the rivers you could have gone up, you go up them. They probably had been informed by locals along the way that this was the river because the Kennebec was a major artery between the St. Lawrence and the East Coast. The Kennebec and Chaudière rivers, what we call the Kennebec Chaudière rivers, the indigenous folks have been using that for years. So they find their way up through, past Bath, through the Chops, Merry Meeting Bay, all the way up. They make it to Augusta, to the head tide. Find a local in the Wabanaki population that's there, and they establish a fur trade in beaver pelts. And fabulously profitable. And they are able to pay off their debts. And certain individuals who are promoting this enrich themselves off it, okay, revise the history as you want. But this trade that was carried out at Fort Cushnock, or at the settlement of Cushnock, which is by the site of Fort Western, right? A very natural place at the head tide of the river, that basically saved the colony, right? And so think of how American history would have been different if they had not found it. Now they might have found another profitable activity, but this is what really saves their bacon. And so this is an important thing. And I just look at it and I go, how the heck they got here from there? But they were talking to people. They weren't dumb. And beaver pelts were just a phenomenally profitable thing for folks. And so there was a lot of trade in that. And the Plymouth colony had a warrant. They had the exclusive rights to the trade, basically from Richmond and Swan Island up to Skowhegan, right? Where there's another river that it was defined as where that river comes in by Skowhegan. And that was a pretty big area. And that is later going to give the Plymouth Company rights to the area. And they're going to, that is going to be a big part of the settlement of the area, is these absentee landowners doling out their property to tenants. But that's another story.